Some of you have not heard of it. So let me explain. It's not going to make any sense at all. In the game, you're a squid that shoots ink with weapons at other squids. But if your ink touches them, they die. And if their ink touches you, you die. But you can swim in your own ink. I don't know. It's just a video game, okay? So it exists. And a bunch of my friends got super hyped about this game. It's really competitive. You get in squads of 4 versus 4, and then all of your squids go and battle other people's squids, and then and you constantly are trying to fight, rank, level up, this kind of thing. And my friends took this game serious. They were like, okay, what weapon is going to be your main? And I was like, what are we talking about here? And they're like, you got to be on every Thursday night for 2 hours. We're going to play this game. Make sure you're on the call. And I was like, guys, this is way too intense. I'm a father. I have children. I have responsibilities. And they're like, they did too. But they were like, let's play. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. And so I definitely was not as committed as those guys were. I would show up every so often and play a little. And then we hit the break point. There was one day that they formed a squad without me. And I was like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, hey Josh, here's the thing. You haven't leveled up enough and we can't play with you anymore. And it wasn't like them being mean, like literally like the game was like, yeah, you guys are on different tiers. You guys can't play anymore. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And I tried to like level up real fast and I am not that good. And so I definitely didn't ever get to their level. And they just kept going. But I felt so left out. Anybody ever just felt left out before? Like for something you wanted to be a part of, right? Like somebody threw a birthday party and you were like, oh, I wanted to go and I didn't get invited. Or there's a friend group and they go and sit at the lunch table and all the seats are taken. And you're walking in going, oh man, I was hoping I could sit there. There's these moments where we feel like we are left out. And in those moments, we feel kind of alone. Now, one place where you're never alone is a concert. How many of you have been to a concert before? Anybody ever been to a concert? All right, on 3, I want you to tell me one person that you've seen in concert. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I heard Lauren Daigle. That's all I heard. All right, so y'all have seen some different people. I saw my favorite band in concert. I've seen them 4 times. Seen them 4 times in concert. 3 of those were in middle school. But that's cool. So I love concerts. At a concert, you're there with people who are like, they're there for the same reason. You're all there to see like one person. You're there to see one band. You're all there together. And it feels like you can't be alone there. In fact, some concerts are massive. Like Taylor Swift just did her big Eras tour, right? Sold out stadiums across the world. But you know what's crazy? I'm pretty confident the total number of tickets sold was 870,000, something like that. It's crazy, right? It's a lot of tickets. But actually, the largest concerts ever occurred in a video game called Fortnite. Did you guys know that Fortnite does their own concerts? Yeah, so you can actually watch artists. They'll come in and they'll take over the game and then you can join in. And a few years ago in Fortnite, a guy named Marshmello, anybody ever heard of Marshmello? A guy named Marshmello took over, hosted a concert inside the video game Fortnite, and they set the world record at the time of 10.7 million people tuned in for one concert together. Isn't that crazy? All right, now, I wanted to show you something because this is one of the largest concerts that had ever assembled. It's millions of people gathering together, and there's no way that you don't feel like you belong. But I want you to listen to the song that Marshmello is singing right at this moment. Check this out. many of you have ever heard the song before? Okay. Also, this is what a Fortnite concert looks like. It's kind of wild. But around the world, 10.7 million people jumped in, and all of them singing, "I'm so alone, nothing feels like home. I'm so alone." Isn't that kind of strange? 10.7 million people. They're not alone, but all of them can recognize the feeling of being alone. 10.7 million people, all Marshmallow fans or all Fortnite fans or fans of both, crossed over in this moment, and yet all of them can agree, I know what it feels like to be alone. And I find that so perplexing, so ironic, so strange, and yet the reality is that you could feel alone. And there might be times that you feel pushed out, cast out, rejected. You didn't make the team. You didn't make the group chat. You didn't make the invite, and you feel on the outside. And what do we do with that? Well, I want to tell you today that when you feel unwanted, God says that you belong. And I'm going to talk today about a couple of guys who had been really rejected. They had been pushed away by literally everyone, including their own family. They had been pushed away by everyone, and the only one who wasn't afraid to reach out was Jesus. But when Jesus did, he transformed everything. And so before we jump into that, we're going to take some time. We're going to jump into our tag groups. We're going to read a little bit from Mark chapter 5, and then we're going to talk through some questions, okay? So turn to your groups, and we'll be back in a few minutes. I told the story before, but it was really crazy when I was in third grade. I wanted to go. There was a kid in my class who was really popular. He was really cool, and I wasn't really friends with him, but his mom felt bad for me, and so I got invited to his birthday party. And so it was me and all of his actual friends, and I know his mom thought she was doing me a favor, but none of those guys wanted me at that party. And so the entire time, they played every game without me. They were like, "Hey, sorry, man, it's 2v2 basketball, so you're the fifth guy, you're just going to have to sit. We're going to play N64, and sorry, man, it's 4-player, you're just going to have to sit." And it was that for the entire party, and I just remember feeling so left out. But that does not compare at all to the guy that we just read in the Bible, does it? Mark chapter 5, that guy, it says that he's so crazy that everyone has kicked him out and they sent him to live by himself in the caves. He lives far away. Nobody wants him close. Nobody likes him. Nobody wants to go near him. In fact, everybody is scared of him. It says that he's so dangerous that when they tried to chain them, he would break the chains. The Bible actually says, so we're reading the story in Mark chapter 5, but the story's in Luke and in Matthew. And in Matthew it says there's actually two guys together, and both of them are crazy. Both of them are crazy. Like I don't know, there's definitely someone who you've seen who you went, "Oh, I hope that I do not sit by them in class." Maybe they were like picking their nose and then went for a high five, or maybe they just they smell funny, or maybe they constantly bother you, and you're like, whatever it is, I don't want to be by them. Nobody wanted to be with these guys. They had been kicked out, and what's interesting is Jesus goes to this place on purpose. Do you know what's really interesting? Is at the end of the story we're about to read, it says that Jesus gets back in his boat and he goes the opposite direction. Which means that the only reason he's going to show up at this place is to meet with the demon-possessed guys that everyone else is scared of. He's immediately going to leave right after. The only reason he's here is for these guys. And so here's what happens. It says that these guys, they see Jesus and they run out of the caves and they go running at Jesus. Now, normally, if someone were only partially clothed and started chasing you, your normal reaction is to run away, or at least it should be. Am I right? Yeah, all right. So that's what should happen. And it says that these guys start running at Jesus and he doesn't run away. Verse 7, it says this. They get to Jesus and it says, with a shriek, he screamed, "Why are you interfering with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In the name of God, I beg you, don't torture me." For Jesus had already said to the spirit or the demon, "Come out of the man, you evil spirit." Then Jesus demanded, "What's your name?" And he replied, "My name is Legion, because there are many of us inside this man." Then the evil spirits begged him again and again not to send them to some distant place. Okay, try to picture this in your mind. I tried to get ChatGPT to help me picture this. This is what it would look like in Fortnite, right? So this guy runs up and he's having a conversation with Jesus. And you know what's interesting? Is that Jesus asks a question and he says, "What's your name?" Jesus is trying to find out who this guy really is. And do you know what the guy says in response? He doesn't actually tell Jesus his name. He says, "Oh, I am Legion," which, does anybody know what a legion is? Oliver, what do you got? It's an army. It was 16,000 soldiers. And so when Jesus goes, "What's your name?" He goes, "Well, here's my character name. Here's my username. My username is Legion. I have 16,000 demons inside of me." Now, he doesn't really probably have 16,000, but that's a brag, isn't it? That's scary. Jesus goes, wait, who are you? And he says, "I'm this." And I need you to understand something, that what Jesus is going to do next is powerful. Jesus is going to cast the demons that are inside of him out of him. And when he does that, he's going back to be who God created him to be. Now, I say that because there are plenty of moments that you might feel alone. Now, make sure you're tracking with me here. I'm not saying that any of you are demon-possessed, okay? However, this guy who is kicked out, what he needs is he needs to know the truth of who God made him to be. And so when Jesus is speaking to him, he's speaking, who are you? You need to know something, J-Box. You need to know who God made you to be. One of the reasons we called this series Restart is because during this series, I want you to be able to have an actual restart, to reset, to go back to, because there are some things that you might believe about yourself that are not true. I didn't mean to kick that pen. It just happened. There's some things that you might believe about yourself that aren't true. You might believe that nobody likes you. You might believe that you're unwanted. You might believe that you are not cool enough. You might believe that you don't belong. You might believe these are things that when Jesus shows up, you have to look at what Jesus actually says about you. Because what the Bible says is the Bible says that you're loved. Did you know this? You might not feel loved, but the Bible says that you're loved. You might feel alone, but guess what? The Bible doesn't say that you're alone. The Bible says that God gives you his presence and you're never alone. The Bible says that God cares about you, that He's a father. The Bible says that you are a conqueror. You are strong because of Jesus. The Bible says that even if you're weak, it doesn't matter because God has strength for you. The Bible says that you don't have to carry your burdens. God can carry them for you. In other words, oftentimes, one of the things that makes us feel pushed and rejected is that we don't know what the Bible actually says about us. And this is why it's so important. When you feel alone, remember who God says you are. Look at what Jesus says about you. And you're going to need to, because there are going to be moments in life. There are going to be moments in life where people are pushing you out. In fact, these guys that give their life to Jesus and a huge change happens. Here's what the Bible says. In verse 15, Jesus had already cast out the demons. He got rid of them. They ran into a herd of pigs, which is crazy. Verse 15, it says, a crowd soon gathered around Jesus, and they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons. He was sitting there, fully clothed, perfectly sane, and they were all afraid. Now, that is hilarious. Can you imagine how crazy you have to be? How crazy you have to be. That for the first time, when people see you in wearing actual clothes and sitting like a normal person, where everybody goes, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. How crazy do you have to be for the first time? I mean, like, the crowd comes out of the city. They hear this big noise. They come and see, and all of a sudden, that guy's put clothes on for the first time, and they're like, that's weird. He's usually naked. We're more used to him being naked than we are with clothes, right? That's weird. And it says, and they were afraid, which is wild. This guy just got healed. Jesus has done a transforming work. The guy's now normal. The guy's okay. There's nothing wrong with him. He is who Jesus made him to be. He is who Jesus said he should be. Shouldn't everybody welcome him in? But this is what happens next. In this next verse, it says, then those who had seen what had happened told the others about the demon-possessed man and the pigs, and the crowd began pleading with Jesus to go away and leave them alone. Do you know what's wild about that moment? Is that even at that moment, just because Jesus had done something in them, just because they aren't actually alone, just because they were changed, doesn't mean that everybody was willing to accept it. Do you know what? There's going to be moments in your life, regardless of how nice you are, regardless of how kind you are, regardless of how cool you are, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of how sweet and dope your parents are, regardless of how cool your sister dresses, regardless of how many video games you have in your house, regardless of what car you pulled up in, someone is going to not like you at some point. And that's hard sometimes to just go, why? Why don't you like me? I remember in high school, there was a kid that didn't like me. And do you know what happened? I ended up finding out. I was like, why doesn't he like me? And the guys go, oh man, he says you're just too nice. You're just too nice. You know what? People are going to come up with reasons. They're going to not like you at some point. And this is what happens even when this guy knows. In fact, it's so important that he knows what Jesus thinks about him. Do you know why? Because sometimes people are going to still be mean. And even after he's healed, even after God begins to do something in him, people are still going, get out of here. We don't want you here. So here's what happens next. Verse 18. It says, as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. But Jesus said, no, go home to your family and tell them everything the Lord has done for you and how merciful he's been. So the man started off to visit the 10 towns of that region and began to proclaim the great things Jesus had done for him. And everyone was amazed at what he told them. If you feel alone, the first thing you need to do is you need to know what Jesus says about you. But after you've seen what Jesus says about you, and when you know who Jesus has made you to be, then I need you to do what Jesus tells this guy to do, which is to look out for others. Do you know what's wild? The guy goes, hey, Jesus, I want to go with you. I'm done with these people. These people rejected me. They pushed me out. And you know what Jesus says? I want you to go to the people. I want you to go back, even to the people who pushed you out. I want you to go back. And he doesn't just go back to his family. He doesn't just go back to his village. It says he goes to an entire county. He goes to an entire region. It was called the Decapolis. It meant the 10 cities. He goes to everyone and goes, hey, now that I know that Jesus has come for me, now that I know what God has done for me, I'm going to everyone else. Some of you in this room, maybe you feel often like the outsider. Like the one who doesn't belong, like nobody sees you, like nobody knows you, like nobody cares. Maybe you feel like that, and today you need to recognize that Jesus has something totally different for you. And some of you in this room are on the other side of it. Some of you in this room, you have friends. You feel like you would never feel like this. And what God is asking of you is to help others be seen.